We're going to bring back auto manufacturing to the United States of America. Tell your union head, United Auto Workers, Sean Fain, tell him to not endorse the Democrats that are going to put you out of business. You're going to be out of a job. Doesn't matter what you get on an hourly basis. You'll be out of a job within 2 years. I'm going to make you rich. I'm going to get you a job. You're going to make a lot of money, and you're going to make a lot of cars.
Meanwhile,
Donald Trump is a billionaire, and that's who he represents. If Donald Trump ever worked in an auto plant, he wouldn't be a UAW member. He'd be a company man trying to squeeze the American worker. Donald Trump stands against everything we stand for as a union, as a society.
several months later.
Obviously, in the past hour, the Trump administration has made an announcement on tariffs, and I've prepared a statement to address this. I'm joined here by the bargaining committee from Volkswagen for the UAW. Look, we are ecstatic to see an administration finally address the unfair trade laws in this country. And this choice is clear. Joe Biden bet on the American worker. These laws have destroyed the American working class. They've destroyed communities in this country and virtually every state for decades. So, we're talking about what President Trump said was a 25% tariff on vehicles not produced in the United States. Also part of that was the ability for Americans to deduct the interest off their loans for buying products that are made in America.
Boy. So we got to talk about American Auto Workers union boss Sean Fain, who supported Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. He supported Kamala Harris and Democrats during the presidential election.
Joe Biden.
My name's Sean Fain. I'm blessed to serve International Union UAW as president. That goes a long way for showing where this president stands with working class people.
Well, I want to tell you, from where I stood, you did a hell of a job, pal.
Yep, back at you.
One hell of a job.
We got to talk about him now flipping, right? He's flipping and he's now supporting President Trump because President Trump is saving his industry with the tariffs that the mainstream liberal media continues to complain about. Now, I find this story to be fascinating because this guy, Sean Fain, is somebody that Democrats or liberals see as a dark horse to potentially run for president in 2028 as a Democrat, okay? And if that is true, I will say this guy is smarter than most Democrats already. Who knows? He could be the guy, okay? Because he is doing what Democrats are refusing to do, which is to agree with President Trump when it makes sense to agree with President Trump, right? Now, I get it. Everybody doesn't necessarily agree with President Trump when it comes to these tariffs. Me personally, I'm going to take a wait-and-see approach because I personally think that the tariffs are being used to renegotiate new trade deals. Some of them may be permanent. Some of them may not be permanent. But in the meantime, I think it's going to help us transition away from Biden's economy and to force Jerome Powell to lower interest rates, which I think ultimately is what the Trump administration wants. And tariffs are a tool to accomplish a lot of things at one time, right? You can kill two birds with one stone, right? I think that's kind of what the tariffs are at this point. So again, I'm going to take a wait and see approach to what actually is going to happen and the effects of what's going to happen. The mainstream liberal media, they're saying a lot of things that I think are just largely overblown, right, when it comes to the tariffs. But we'll see, right? This is going to be a real-time economic lesson that will be fascinating to witness. But anyways, at least right now, right, you have Sean Fain, the UAW union boss, coming out, and he's now supporting President Trump because President Trump is keeping his promise of saving the auto industry, right? Making the auto industry in the United States of America more competitive by protecting the industry, right? Essentially is what the president is doing, which is going to help protect jobs for these union workers, okay? And that is something that the union boss is very happy about, right? Despite the fact that he advocated for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, who did nothing, right, for them. Okay. And, I don't know why he decided to endorse them. The other union boss, Sean O'Brien, was at least smart enough to recognize that President Trump would keep his promise to the union workers. And he endorsed President Trump. But this guy, Sean Fain, seems to be extremely Trump deranged. But his Trump derangement seems to have been fixed by the fact that, again, President Trump is keeping his promises. And Sean Fain went on CBS to school the host on why President Trump's tariffs are saving his industry in American jobs and how it's going to bring back jobs to this country. Take a look.
Let's get back to the tariffs and the auto industry. Peter Navarro, a top advisor to the president on trade, says currently automobile manufacturing plants are at about 60% capacity. He argues that there's lots of untapped capacity, meaning jobs could be created relatively easy and you wouldn't need to spend 2 or 3 or maybe 5 years building new factories. Is that your understanding? Is that your belief?
It's spot on. Look, we have a situation right now in Warren, Michigan, where 2,000 workers were laid off this past year. They built the Ram truck there for years under Stellantis. And Stellantis made a decision to shift that production to Mexico. They could shift that work back in very short order and be producing Ram trucks right back there and put those people back to work. I was just at Volkswagen this week, talking with workers down there that are trying to get their first contract. And the company announced a reduction of a shift. Meanwhile, Volkswagen's the biggest violator of all. 75% of their production for the North American market is made in Mexico. So they can shift product there overnight. There's excess capacity. People forget this lesson in World War II. The way that we formed the arsenal of democracy that won the war was they took the excess capacity of all the automotive manufacturing plants in the country and produced tanks and planes and bombs and engines and all those things. And it's no different right now. We have excess capacity. They could bring work back in very short order. And yes, they're in a situation where they need to build a new plant. Yeah, that's going to take a couple years. But there is plenty of opportunity for these companies to do the right thing and bring work back here overnight, just as quick as they shipped it out of here.
And Sean, for people who are listening to you, how do tariffs make that happen? What is the relationship between a 20 or 25% tariff and getting that capacity back up to where you'd like to see it?
Well, because like everything, the companies abuse the process. I mean, they're in the pursuit of driving a race to the bottom. I mean, the tariffs are, there was a major promise when NAFTA, we go back to when NAFTA happened in 1992, the big debate, and Ross Perot talked about the giant sucking sound that our manufacturing base was going to disappear. He was spot on, and we saw what happened in the ensuing 30 years. We've seen 90,000 plants leave. Like I said, we've seen 65 plants in the big three close. Look, right now, as we speak, in Wisconsin, we have a Deere plant threatening to be closed, and their work being threatened to go to Mexico. We have a heavy truck plant at Freightliner, Volvo, and Mack Truck in Pennsylvania being threatened to be taken to Mexico. There is plenty of opportunity, and that's the reality that we've seen here in America. So tariffs are a tool in the toolbox. They're not the end-all solution. We have to fix the broken trade system. But the way tariffs work, I mean, it's a motivator because there's going to be a penalty for everything the companies ship in here. And I've had companies tell us point blank that they're going to have to bring product back here if those tariffs are implemented.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that, okay? The guy used to be a never-Trumper, and now all of a sudden he's thanking President Trump for saving his industry. Again, it's funny how that works. Democrats did nothing, okay, and he supported Democrats for what? Again, nothing, okay? President Trump made a promise. He said he was going to do it. And he's doing it. And, hey, I got to give credit to the guy. He's actually coming out and giving President Trump credit where credit is due. Now, again, President Trump apparently is doubling and tripling down on some of these tariffs, right? And coming up next week, we have what President Trump calls Liberation Day, where he's going to apply reciprocal tariffs across the board to countries, okay, who are tariffing us because he wants to revitalize domestic manufacturing, okay, and bring jobs back to America. He wants stuff to be made in America. Again, not just for us to assemble foreign parts and then pretend as if it was made in America. No. He actually wants it to be made in America, okay? We need to be manufacturing and producing goods the same way that we used to back in our heyday, right? In the late 1800s, early 1900s, America, we were a manufacturing powerhouse. And now we don't do that, right, too much anymore. Okay, President Trump wants to return back to America making stuff. So without further ado, I want to play this clip here from Fox Business in which one of President Trump's economic council members is going to talk more about Liberation Day and also the GOP economic plan in general. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it.
It's taken our wealth, taking a lot of things that they've been taking over the years. They've taken so much out of our country. Charge countries for doing business in our country and taking our jobs, taking our wealth, taking a lot of things that they've been taking over the years. They've taken so much out of our country, friend and foe, and frankly, friend has been oftentimes much worse than foe.
The president already announcing a 25% tariff will take effect at 12:01 a.m. Eastern this Thursday morning on all car and car parts imported into America. The U.S. already imposes a 2.5% tariff on passenger cars and a 25% tariff on pickup trucks. Joining me now on the road ahead is the director of the National Economic Council, Kevin Hassett. Kevin, great to see you this morning. Thanks so much for being here. You made the point to me a couple of weeks ago that, look, we've got more than 100 countries. We're talking about 15 countries here that contribute to the largest trade deficit that we're seeing. Walk us through how many countries will be impacted here come Wednesday.
Well, President Trump is going to decide how many countries. The point about 15 countries is that we have massive, massive trade deficits with about 15 countries. It doesn't mean that there aren't a lot of other unfair trade practices around the world. And so the reciprocal part of our trade actions will be visible to everybody on the 2nd. The thing I can say is if you look at what we've already accomplished, I don't think there's ever been a trade team that's more united in accomplishing the president's goals. If you think about it, there have been action after action after action. And you mentioned the auto tariffs. Since they're in the past, it's easier for me to talk about. The auto tariffs come from a backstory that I think is really interesting, Maria, that has really haunted all of us who study the U.S. economy. If you go back to the year after I graduated high school, 1985, I'm sorry I'm that old, then 97% of the cars in the U.S. were made in the U.S. And now it's almost none if it's a car. But we do have trucks, light trucks, pickup trucks and SUVs, in part because way back when we put a 25% tariff on those things. And so 90% of the pickup trucks in America are made either in the U.S. or in the U.S. and Canada and Mexico, and 70% are completely made in the U.S. The point is, think ahead to a year or two from now that we have those auto tariffs, how many cars are going to be made in the U.S. by U.S. firms with U.S. workers? It's going to be a boom, just like it has been with light trucks. And so President Trump has a long-run vision of a golden age of America, and we're working really, really hard to get it out there in time. But I can't give you any forward-looking guidance on what's going to happen this week. The president has got a heck of a lot of analysis before him, and he's going to make the right choice, I'm sure.
And, of course, we've already seen a number of companies say, we're going to build it in America. We don't want to face these tariffs, so we're going to fire up our plants, even if that takes 2 or 3 years to do. But what do you want to say to people who are questioning this as they see the stock market sell off? President Trump was very clear. He said, look, we will see disruption, but longer term, this is the goal, as you just stated it. How long would you expect this disruption to last? The Wall Street Journal out with a piece this morning, tariffs on screws are already hitting manufacturers, meanwhile, meaning that they're going to raise prices.
Well, first of all, notice how many announcements there have been made about all the investment that's coming to the U.S. Even Hyundai said they're going to build a $10 billion plant this week. And so the point is all that stuff comes to the U.S., then the value of U.S. production has to go up. And so right now, about 15% of GDP is imported, and that's the part of GDP that'll be impacted by our trade policies. And they're basically taking 15% of GDP and onshoring it. Meanwhile, one of the biggest news items that people haven't been talking about is the Big Six, the group of us that are negotiating with Congress the tax bill, have had an enormous amount of positive progress. And so think about it. We've got the biggest, most pro-worker tax cut in history that's moving forward at a breakneck speed, and that affects the other 85% of GDP. So President Trump is right to say we've got the golden age coming. And I think the naysayers will be proven wrong if they're a little bit nervous about the blips from this week to next.
Well, there are also questions about the tax extensions. When will they be implemented? How will the Congress get it done? I mean, the president wants this one big, beautiful bill, as he calls it, but in the Senate, they want to get back to pre-COVID spending, and they want to do 2 bills, maybe even 3 bills. So are you confident that you're going to see those tax cuts get extended before year end?
Yeah, I'm really, really confident. I've met with the Speaker of the House along with the Treasury Secretary this week. I've met with the Majority Leader and a bunch of senators twice this week. And, you know, the House and the Senate, they're negotiating over things like the rules of reconciliation and so on, but they're not very far apart at all. And my expectation is that this tax bill is way, way, way ahead of the big success we had back in 2017. And you might recall I was in the middle of that one, too. It feels like the odds of this passing sometime in the summer are extraordinarily high. And what that means is not just the stuff that we did before, but all the new stuff that's so important for workers. No tax on Social Security, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. All of those things are going to be producing more labor in the U.S. Labor is about 70% of value added in the U.S. So you get an explosion of labor supply. Think what's going to happen to output. It's a golden age. And again, with all that supply, you don't have inflation. It's increased demand from government spending that causes inflation, not increased supply.
Well, yeah. So that is damn near basically the same theory that I put out there about what's going to happen in the long term, right? In the sense that what they want to do is that they want supply side stimulus, right? They want to basically flood the market with more supply, which will essentially counteract the demand side stimulus that we saw during the pandemic, okay, from the Biden administration, which caused the inflation, right? So, you know, this is probably going to be the biggest supply side stimulus package that we've ever seen, right? And it seems like President Trump is just kind of setting things up for us to have a manufacturing boom. I think that's what they're trying to do. Now, whether or not this works, I don't know, right? But I'm confident. I have faith that a year from now we're going to see the fruits of all these policies. I just think that the best thing to do is take a wait and see approach to understand what the actual end goal is, okay? And it's going to take time, right? It's not something that's going to happen overnight. I think that ultimately we're going to see better trade deals. I think ultimately that's what's going to happen. That's going to be a result of these tariffs, in which you're going to have more protectionism for American jobs in some industries, right? But also at the same time, we're going to have freer trade probably when it comes to other industries as well, too, right? In the sense that we're going to convince countries to lower their trade barriers so that the United States can compete in their markets, right? And that is something that will also help out domestic producers. So I think that's what President Trump is all about at this point. That is why he's encouraging so many companies to come here, right? He wants companies to come here and to spend money, to invest, okay, to create jobs, because he wants to make the United States of America a manufacturing, a producing powerhouse once again. And that is how you interpret what he's doing right now, right? A lot of people think that, oh, it's just chaos and he doesn't know what he's doing and, you know, yada, yada. And it's like, no, it's pretty clear what he's trying to do, right? What they're attempting to do here, okay? Which, again, is to make the United States of America a manufacturing hub once again. And in order to do that, you have to make this one of the most business-friendly places on earth, okay? That means lowering taxes, a little bit of protectionism where needed, right, for certain industries, and then also forcing other countries to lower their trade barriers so that U.S. producers can do business in other countries, which will also, again, help us out here. Again, these are all things that President Trump is trying to do, and I think that people just got to give it time, right? Got to give it time, and I think a year or two from now, we're really going to see the positive benefits of the GOP tax plan, plus the renewed trade agreements from the Trump administration. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.